was a personal representative for GIs and so forth, and they were brought over to Seas to work in our different outfits in the 9th Air Force Service Command, which they were repairing planes and so forth. I was in, England, France, Germany, Luxembourg, so forth.
What was your rank?
Sergeant.
Sergeant. Where were you stationed at?
Where was I stationed? That's where
How old were you when you left?
when I entered the service, I was 35 years old.
And when you left?
I was an old man.
Okay. Were you drafted or were you?
I was drafted.
Drafted.
I received a notice from the president that I was drafted.
Who was the president then?
Theodore Roosevelt.
Do you agree with him? Do you like him?
Well, I really wasn't an Army man, if you want to know that. But when I was drafted, there was nothing else that I could do. You had to go.
Were there any other members of your family in the war?
None that I know of.
No. Were you married?
Was Uncle Cliff in the war?
Huh?
Uncle Cliff?
No.
Uncle Jack?
Jack.
Jack was?
He was drafted, but he turned it down. He was a conscientious objector.
Really?
Yeah.
What did that mean?
Well, he just didn't approve of the Army or shooting of any kind. He always thought that was what he was going to do, you know. So he just decided to, a lot of them, for people, fellows that didn't want to go to the Army, they were conscientious objectors.
Tell them where they ended
And
up.
he had that the rest of his life.
They counted.
What did they
it
do to
against
you?
him.
I mean, didn't they do anything? Like,
It didn't do anything to him. I don't know what they really do to conscientious objectors. I never heard. A lot of them went to Canada. I guess maybe that helped them. I don't know.
Because a lot of them were turned down on their jobs.
Yeah, that really,
really?
it really hurt them the rest of their lives. Yeah, getting a position and jobs, but they didn't care. But that's the only one that I know that he never went anywhere. Stayed home with Mommy.
he didn't, did he?
Yeah.
Were you married
Was I married?
at that time?
I was married.
And pregnant. You were pregnant too, right?
No, I was not.
Mommy was.
In the
He
Army,
came
I
home
was.
on leave.
That's right.
No, I was married in 1941. I was just married. I was a young man
Newlywed.
and newlywed. They took me away from her.
Oh.
I guess I was too rough on her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was married.
What were your responsibilities
Over there.
Huh?
in the war?
In the war. When I was in England, I was put in the office, the 9th Air Force Service Command, and we had records of keeping the number of personnel in each of the posts that we had around England. There were about 40 of them, and we just kept a record of each individual, and when he had, how much time he had spent doing this or that, and just records, that's all, keeping records of all these servicemen in England.
Would I ask for importance?
Maybe ask him how his job affected other people. How did your job affect other people?
Didn't affect them at all. They just, we just kept their records for them. That's all we did while they were in the
Did
service.
people have to ask you before they could go home?
No.
I mean, did people have to go through your office?
What did you said last night?
Our office records were sent to the United States.
Mm-hmm. And it was
But I
records
had nothing to do with that.
it was records of people who were wounded, or
That
what?
were all stationed in England
Who was stationed and where
in
they
the
were.
European theater operations.
And Daddy, you said too last night, remember that if somebody's command was 200 less or something like that, you were responsible for finding out how many people were where they were and moving them places, right?
Oh yeah, we followed them all the way through the service. All the way through. The headquarters was in England, and then when we went to France, they were transported to France, and we took over from there. Then they were transported to Lexington. We took them there. And when we took them to Germany, then when I got out of the service, they were stationed there, left there with the colonel, Colonel Rogers. But anyway, she don't care about that.
Everything that you have to say, she cares about.
Okay, were you in combat action?
I was in no combat action. All I heard was bombs bursting.
I was gonna say, I bet you heard a lot of bombs though.
Well, only when they got to Belgium, that last bombing action, we could hear it, but we didn't see anything. And when we were in England, they bombed London, and they bombed, but we weren't that close.
And when you were going over there on the ship, you said that you were up on deck, and he said that there was rumors about subs bombing the ships or something like that, and he was figuring out where he was going to jump when it got hit.
Well, so then that would be, you would ask him, well, then you heard the bombs, so then that would be when you would ask him, well, were you ever afraid
Yeah.
for your life?
Were you? Yeah.
She can make up all that stuff.
Huh? I know, I'm just...
Were any of your friends? What I said your unit? When they was in the unit? Is that right?
Company.
Friends in your unit or friends?
What'd you ask me?
Okay, were any of your friends or men in your unit wounded?
The what?
Were any of your friends or men in your unit wounded?
No.
They weren't. Okay,
Thank goodness, huh?
Huh?
Thank goodness, huh?
Yeah, you aren't kidding. Except the good Lord.
How did you feel about the war and our purpose there?
How did I feel about the war?
Honestly and truthfully.
Huh?
Honestly and truthfully.
I really don't, not being what you would call him, a army man, or I just wasn't an army man, and I wouldn't have gone if I didn't have to go. And then when I gave it a lot of thought, but when the Japs bombed Pearl Harbor, and Hitler was going across the Eastern European theater of operation, I just thought, well, I guess we all have to go. So I went.
Did you think that it was a good thing that we went and we intervened?
It was, everything was fine about it, but I didn't want to leave home.
When the war was over, what were your feelings?
Huh?
When the war was over, what was your feelings?
Like everybody else's, we were happy that it was over with, and we were happy that we were going home. And I had a mixed feeling of being happy and sad, because I was happy that I was going home to my family. And it's surprising the feeling I had about coming home. I've often thought about that. I thought I would be supremely happy, but I guess I hated to be away from Mama.
Yeah.
Mama, and But when I stepped off that plane, and there was Mother with this little one, that kind of felt good. But she wiped the tears out of my eyes, and everything was okay then. But my daughter there had a big scar on her here. I thought she'd been in a fight already. She looked like she'd been in a
war.
But it was, I think that after the war was over, they first were to come home were the over 38s, and I was 38, and they stationed us over 38s in some field in France, and we had to wait 3 months before they had a ship, brought a ship over for us.
Wow.
So away finally they did, and I think after that, it was okay.
Was home ever the same after the war?
Huh? What's that?
Was home ever the same?
Yes, everything was the same. My wife took care of her rooming house while I was gone, and so everything was about the same when I came home.
Since the war, what states have you lived in?
What?
Is that a good question? How would I say that?
He's only been in Florida.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, he's been in Arkansas and in Georgia.
I would say, has your daughter been in?
Yeah.
But
did the war change your views on any issues like racism and stuff?
No, I don't think so, not particularly.
In the war, did you see any Jews or any victims?
What's that?
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
What's that?
In the war, did you see any Jews or any victims of the war?
That's a new one. We came up with that one in the car.
The what?
New question. When you were in the war, and maybe probably when you were down in France, moving down to France, and you went through Germany and stuff, did you see any Jewish people or any victims of the war, of the Holocaust or anything?
The only thing I saw was the bombing and damage that we did, and it was very difficult to find office space for our 9th Air Force Service Command because all the buildings were down in France, and we took over a school, and in France we were in barracks. The young personnel were in barracks. In Luxembourg, we didn't stay very long there because they didn't want us.
They didn't.
No, we were only there about maybe a few months. Then we had to move on.
Gosh, when you said you didn't stay very long, I was thinking maybe you stayed for a couple
No.
days.
No.
A couple months though, huh?
We moved on. Luxembourgers apparently had some sort of an agreement to get out. We never did find out. But it was nice there. That was a beautiful city. It was what you call a Catholic city. Beautiful churches, things like that. I liked Luxembourg. Then we made arrangements to go to Germany. And I was there. That's where it ended. That's where the United States ended the war. Right there.
Did you ever see the concentration camps? No.
There was a
Probably
lot of
didn't.
things I didn't see
Yeah, I don't think that you wanted to
that
see
many GIs saw. There were the younger generation, younger kids they traveled all over when they had the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't do that.
You want to get home.
Oh. But anyway, it was quite an experience.
Oh.
That was
That it?
55 years ago. Huh?
I think you should add that in there too.
Oh,
Yeah.
That you're remembering something that was 57, 55 years ago.
Yep, say just what you said. I'm Christy Payne. I'm here with Mr. Everett. I'm Christy Payne. I'm here with Mr. Everett Nelson Perry for my interview with World War II for Mr. Stockmeyer's American History class.
Perfect.
I'm Christy Payne. I'm here with Mr. Everett Nelson Perry for my interview for World War II for Mr. Stockmeyer's American History class.
That's good.
What is your whole name?
My name is Everett Nelson Perry.
What is your birth date?
My birth date is November the 9th, 1906.
What division of the armed forces were you in?
The 9th Air Force Service Command.
What was your rank?
My rank was sergeant.
Where were you stationed at during the war?
When I left this country, we landed in England, and I spent 2 years in England. And then we were transported to France, where we spent about 9 months, I think. And then we were transported to Luxembourg, and from Luxembourg we went to Germany.
How old were you when you went to the war?
When I entered the service, I was 35 years old.
How old were you when you left?
Huh? What was the question?
How old were you when you left the war?
In Europe?
Mhm.
In Europe, I was there for three years.
Were you drafted or did you enlist?
And I was drafted.
Were any other members of your family in the war?
None that I can think of, no.
Were you married then?
I was married.
Did you have any children?
I had no children.
What was your responsibilities? What did you do?
I was in more or less the office of the 9th Air Force Service Command, in charge of personnel in each unit of the command in England. And we had 37 units, and they repaired planes. And that was their official duty. And I kept their records from the time that they entered the service in England until we got to Germany.
So did your job affect other people?
Just as a matter of that they would have in Washington.
So were you ever in combat action?
I was never in any combat action.
Okay. Were you ever afraid for your life at any time?
No, not that I know of. Only, as I said, in going over, I was doing guard duty on the ship. And I think I was a little nervous at that time, but that's all.
Did you hear bombs?
No, we were very fortunate.
Were any of your friends or men in your unit wounded?
I do not know of anybody that in the service that I was in wounded. There was no
Who was the president during that time?
President Roosevelt.
Did you agree with him and did you like him?
Truthfully, I think I would have to say yes.
Mm. How did you feel about the war and our purpose there? Did you agree with our reason being there?
I didn't have much of a personal interest in the war, and only the fact that when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, as I say, and when Hitler was carrying on so in Europe, I thought it was necessary that we enter the war.
Mm-hmm. When the war was over, what were your feelings?
I was very happy and that we had won, and that everybody was happy and were anxious to get home.
Really? Were you ever sad?
Hmm?
Were you sad?
Was that what?
Sad?
Well, a lot of times.
Mm-hmm. Was home ever the same after the war? Did it feel good to go home?
Mm-hmm. Yes, it was.
Really? Since the did the war change your views on any issues like racism or
Racism?
just any kind of views?
Not particularly
Mm. When you were
at that time.
when you were in Germany or anything, did you see any Jews, any victims, or any results of the war?
I did not.
Did not.
No.
Could people say no to a draft?
Many people said no, and they were considered as conscientious objectors,
Mm-hmm.
which followed them the rest of his life.
What are conscientious objectors?
What are conscientious? That's what they are. They do not approve of war or killings, you might say.
What do they do?
They just spend their life as conscientious objectors. Some of them left the country and went to Canada. There were many conscientious objectors that wrote books and things like that. In fact, while I was working in Florida, I gave Jack, who was a conscientious objector, I was the only one that gave him a job.
Mm.
And that's about all.
They couldn't get jobs?
Huh?
They couldn't get jobs?
Well, he never found one,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people objected to that, being a conscientious objector.
How did you get drafted?
I just received a letter from Washington, signed by the president, that I was being drafted.
What happened after you got drafted? Where did you go?
After I was drafted, I went to Cincinnati, from Cincinnati to Fort Thomas, Kentucky, and took a physical and passed the physical, and then I was sent to Tampa. And at Tampa, from Tampa, I went to Camp Crowder, Missouri, and took 13 weeks of basic training.
What did you do during basic training?
Oh, we just went through a lot of exercises and workouts and took care of the garbage. And we had duties in the kitchen, and whatever they could think of, they gave it to the GIs. They call them GIs. And then I was sent from there back to Tampa, where I received my training for overseas.
Well, thank you for letting me do this interview.
She's speaking.
Hi, my name is Quint, and this is my assistant Kim. I'm here to tell you something about something amazing. It is water that can make you live forever.
If you live forever, you can make the future. It's only $150.
From now until 4 p.m. tomorrow is Santa time at Drakensburg Road at the Bahama Mama.